Welcome to X-Men Evolution, episode 24 of Cyclops is Waiting For Me, an X-Men animated recap podcast. I'm Rod. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah. What was it, Festivus?
I don't celebrate Festivus.
Okay, yeah. Really? I feel like Festivus would be yours.
I may get hate for this, but I absolutely despise Seinfeld. I think it is one of the worst pieces of television in history.
I haven't rewatched it, so I can't say if I would still like it or not. And I don't even know, like in the 80s and 90s, where like, I don't know if I liked
where we didn't
something.
have standards.
Well, that, but also like there wasn't like this democratization of entertainment, so you just got what you got, and so you just kind of convinced yourself you maybe you liked it or tolerated it.
Nope, not that show.
And that's one of the shows where I didn't absolutely hate it at the time, at least, but I don't remember if I just tolerated it or liked it. So who knows? It's kind of like rewatching Friends. You're like, ooh, this is best left in the 2000s.
I understand why I liked Friends. I have never liked Seinfeld.
I guess
point blank.
Yeah, but
so way to set us down this road, Rod.
I thought mainly Festivus, because like airing of grievances, and isn't there like a poll or something involved? Like I don't know.
I would have had to have watched it to know that, but no.
It's mainly it's like a Scroogey version of Christmas, where like you air your grievances for each other and stuff, and like, I don't know. It sounds. So
like you're saying it sounds like something I would like.
Yeah, like not the show, but like the thing that they celebrate in the show. So,
and I'm JC, and I hope everybody has a great holiday coming up. Cyclops is Waiting For Me is our weekly podcast series. We're going back and watching every single X-Men animated episode we can find, along with some bonus episodes. Teaser, our first episode back from the new year, is finally a bonus episode. Our first series started with the original 1992 X-Men the Animated Series, building up to the release of X-Men 97, which we thought was coming to Disney Plus this year. But as this is our final episode of 2023, because we are going to take a break for the holiday to, recoup and stuff, we're going to say it's pretty safe that's not happening.
Yeah. And I was at the panel with the Lee Walls, Larry Houston, and Lenore Zahn at LA Comic Con. Also, thanks for the hookup for the past.
Oh yeah, this is our first episode after that show. Yeah.
And I am tired, like we predicted afterwards, but it was a lot of fun. It was worth the social spoons, and I went back voluntarily another day.
Yeah, Rod actually went back more than I did. I did not make it back on Sunday.
Oh, I didn't think about that. So I was there Friday too.
Well, I also went drinking on Saturday night, which you did not.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I had that was the end of my night that Saturday. But yeah. I did a smart, like for me. I know myself. So Friday I went and got my pass, so I wouldn't have to be flustered with like logistics the day of, And then Saturday was just go to the panel, follow you around, and then like I kind of spotted a couple things that I wanted, and then I figured the next day if I'm still thinking about them the next day, then maybe I'll go grab them. And also my friend Stacy was on a panel. Yep. So I was like, okay, we'll go back for an hour, and I got a Storm patch, actually from like the Pride of the X-Men era. I know there's a specific artist attached to that, but I don't know their name. And I got some Hulk fudge. That sounds dirtier than it really is.
You made that sound like the least appetizing thing on the planet.
But it was chocolate mint, so if that's your thing.
Yeah.
I went to that panel, and they had Larry played a video from Rick Hoberg, who I was not familiar with before this. I don't know how much or if he had any involvement with X-Men 92 or Evolution or anything, but he was part of the Pride of the X-Men pilot with Larry. And Rick has Parkinson's.
I have notes for him for when we record that episode.
Oh, cool. So Rick, I guess, has Parkinson's, so he was unable to attend the panel, but he made a very snazzy iMovie video, and Larry played it. And I put this on our story, so you might have heard this before if you follow our Instagram stories. He, in passing, said, I can't wait for you guys to see X-Men 97 next month. And I don't know if that was just like a guess or an assumption that he just like said, or if he like spilled the beans on something. And when I asked, I'm not going to name any names, when I asked the others involved, like, was that a slip up, or did he, like a slip up in like information, or did he just guess? And they're like, yes, he was in a video. I was like, okay, so who knows? I mean, and then there was like this press release talking about Echo coming out in January, and I assume they meant Echo comes out first and then 97, and but the way they worded it, it sounded like 2 or 3 Marvel projects were all releasing like in the same month. But
well, because you would have the end of What If. Would that cross over into January? I don't remember what the release date on.
It's 9 days over Christmas week. And like the middle episode is Christmas Eve, so it should be over before that should be over before the
okay, so that's got to be the Happy Hogan as Die Hard episode, right?
Yeah, that's Christmas Eve, but the way like the press release that I read worded it was like X-Men 97, something else, and Echo coming out in January 2024, and I was like, Okay, well, we know Echo's coming out 2024. Did they list it that way, saying only Echo comes out 2020 January, or were they saying all three of them come out? Like, that's so. I'm assuming they just meant Echo was, because we know that. It was just a strange way that they wrote it out, where depending, it's like the black or blue dress thing, or something. Like, depending on how you look at the sentence, I don't know.
Like what your predisposition is, essentially.
I guess, yeah, because it's like, wait, so are all three coming out at the same time? I don't know.
Shout out to all the X-Men cosplayers, and Rod, you did a great job with the Hellfire Gala walk reel that you did. That is still on our feed for Instagram. That was more than just a story. Michelle Waffle, Jordan Olson, and a handful of other people involved in the Uncanny Experience were all part of that, which was pretty cool.
And I need to do another one because I thought of a better song. The one that was in that was really cool, but I thought one more on topic. But also, I forgot to use every video that you sent me because I was tired AF.
Yeah, that's true. I thought you were going to put it out like midweek. You put it out like the next day. I'm like, when did he edit this? Yeah,
well, that was also, it was like on my phone and stuff. Yeah. There's like it has this cool shake effect, but also like if I don't like put it on like as a task for my later self or whatever, it's just not going to get done. So I'd probably put it on a list, and I don't know if it was the next day or a week later. I saw it come up on my list, get it done now. Like, I didn't know half of the characters, but like everybody did a great job with the outfits.
They're all like the Krakoan era, which I know you're not as familiar with, but there are some of those characters that are like, they're obscure unless you're reading weekly X-Men books, so it's totally understandable that you wouldn't know like half of them. So
yeah, and I wasn't familiar with like that Dazzler. Yeah, for one. Like, I knew Dazzler, obviously, but I was like, that was a cool costume. And I saw the comic version that she was cosplaying as, and it was really cool. But, like, I was like, I've never seen Dazzler like that. Whoever was Storm was awesome. Like, I kind of...
Her name is Giselle. We did tag her in the Instagram post.
I hope... I don't know if that is... I'm assuming that's based off a specific iteration of Storm from...
It's all based off of Hellfire Gala stuff, because in the comics, there was the whole, like I said, the Krakoan era, and at the 1 year anniversaries of it, it was basically like, oh, this is where they showed that they could terraform Mars and do all these like big things to show that mutants are there to help the world. And it's basically like the mutant Met Gala is the best way to describe it.
Yeah,
it's also where they all died in the recent one.
I say that because, like, if you go look at that reel, or if you know which one we're talking about, I think that's a good example of, and I always harp on Storm because of how bad they did her in the original X-Men movies. Like, that Storm that was at the Hellfire Gala walk isn't one of, like, the iconic Storms that we think of, when we think of, like, 92 or, the Mohawk from the comics and stuff. But I think that energy works really well.
Yep.
And so in whatever MCU Storm that is, like, if they don't go with like one of the quote unquote like iconic looks, like if they want to make it look more realistic or whatever, I feel like that Storm that we saw looks like it could be in, like an Oscar worthy movie as like a character design, but also like that is this, as soon as like that person comes across screen, I'd be like, that is Storm. Right. There's like this like unquantifiable energy to be like, okay, that fits, but like this doesn't, and like and so I don't know. I hope they do anything other than what they did with Storm previously, but just like it doesn't have to be silver or white costume or whatever. It can just be the right goddess energy.
Thought on LA Comic-Con, walking by one of the booths, I did see the silver action figure for Storm, which I don't think I had ever actually seen that one. I had the one with the black outfit. There was obviously the re-release with the white that happened, but I'd not ever seen the Storm with silver in person. So
I remember the silver one specifically because I begged my mother for it. And besides the color, the only thing that was different is it wasn't even a full cape. It was like a little strand of plastic going from the hand down to the waist. And my mom's like, you already have this. I was like, but it's silver. It's like the TV show. And she's like, no. And I remember distinctly, I think my brother also had a Storm. For some reason, we had two Storm action figures. I don't know if like one broke and fixed it or whatever, but the second one, I like painted it silver so poorly. It's so funny that you hadn't seen that because like it's such a core part of like my childhood memories. Oh, speaking of toys though, you had a great idea for the Leewalds, them unboxing Lego minifigs. If you guys haven't seen that yet, you should go watch it because
the best laid plans will absolutely fail.
Yeah, twice. Dude. It failed, but it was also like thanks to your foresight, like.
Yeah, let's not ruin the failure for the people who haven't watched it yet. But yeah,
you should go watch it. It was great, and those two are so energetic. Like I love like how enthusiastic they are about everything. Like even the still photo, the two of them holding the minifigs up. Eric's face, he's like in 5-year-old playing with his toys energy there. I love it.
I love that it seemed like they had never done an unboxing before, which we know is common within our space. Yeah. But like Julia just like so innocently is like, so what do we do? And I'm just like, oh my God, this is their first time like in that kind of environment. So
maybe I'll post like the full video without the edit, because we cut it just so it would be a little snappy and would fit in a real time period. But
throw the full thing on TikTok.
Yeah, in the cut version, Eric opens up his package and he's like, "What did I get?" and hands you the pamphlet. That was so fun. And you're like, "No, that's the pamphlet." He's like, "Oh, okay."
Well, because it had Logan's face right on it. So
yeah, he's like, "Oh, I got Wolverine." I forgot about that.
Yeah, you have to post the full thing. So.
Yeah. And we also got to see Steven, so it was good seeing him. I've never gotten to meet him in person. So some quick reminders: we're a recap show about a series that started over 20 years ago. There will be spoilers. If you don't want spoil for you, pause the podcast, watch the episode, and come back. We're currently not sponsored by or affiliated with Marvel Animation, Disney, or Disney Plus in any way.
Don't forget to follow us on social media at Cyclops IWFM Pod on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Twitter, and Facebook. And of course, make sure you follow us on your favorite of your podcast services. If you found this on like YouTube, I think it's better for us if you follow us on Spotify or one of those other ones. Just saying. So
it's also more convenient, because unless you pay for like YouTube Premium, you can't like leave the audio up and stuff.
Yeah, and you could like auto load it in and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So
now onto the show. Today we're going to be talking about season 2, episode 11, titled Shadow Dance. It aired on February
only 13 minutes, by the way. It only took us 13 minutes to get to the show this week. So we made drastic improvements.
It aired February 2nd, 2002. Currently sits at a 7.1 star rating on IMDb.
So before we get into anything, there are 2 moments in this show that reference something from a previous episode. One you may have picked up on, the other one you would not have, so you haven't like missed anything. But they are definitely out of order on Disney Plus and IMDb. So I think the fandoms may actually be the right order at this point.
Oh, okay. Wait. So, I guess we'll get to it when we get to that part.
I'll get to both parts. I
definitely know the one because they make it very apparent.
Yeah.
But I don't know about the others, so that's interesting. Okay. So it opens up at the mansion. I love this. It's a very small thing, but we don't have as many like animation errors in this one. This is not really an error, but you can see the cost-cutting measure where they're just like literally zooming in on the still image of the mansion. It's like you pinch and zoom. In the hallway, Rogue and Kitty are talking. Kitty actually phases through a wall into the hallway with Rogue, and
with her hair down. I kind of like that they made a point of doing that.
Yeah, and Rogue asks Kitty if she's going to ask Lance to the Sadie Hawkins dance that's happening at school. And
because they were talking on the phone until 1:30 in the morning.
So I know this is like my thing on this podcast, but this episode I felt like was full of double entendres. Even if they were unintentional, it was just so
Where was that? Where's any entendre to that?
Well, that one was like, you were up until 1:30. I know they're just kids and they're just talking on the phone, but like,
what the fuck did you do in high school, Rod?
I don't know. We're bored in Indiana.
Apparently.
So she is a little hesitant about it because of what everybody else will think. And fair enough. In their world, they're probably thinking, oh, just because we've had friction with them and he left the Institute. Us thinking, he's multiple times tried to homicide you.
Yeah.
So
also, I just gotta say, I love that instead of saying kill, you said homicide. Yeah. When we're in the internet era where you're supposed to say unalive for monetization reasons. You actually made it worse. Yeah,
well, because I think it is worse because it's not just like a oops. You're not like
it's not manslaughter. It is intentional. It's first or second degree depending on the instance.
Yeah, there's a team. There's a ringleader. There's so much happening, and then Kitty Uno reverses and asks Rogue about asking Scott. I guess they've aired that out. And Rogue is like, well, there's Jean and Taryn and stuff. And
well, Kitty is the one who actually says, before Jean moves in. Like, Kitty's the one who actually, like, throws that little, like, dig in.
I like how the girls aren't oblivious. So we can write that
they're
out of...
so aware.
So we can write that out of the cartoon logic of, like, people just don't know. Like, they're... Actually, they do a lot of it in this episode. We're like, yeah, no, this is weird. But then Jean catches up with them. I feel like they purposely, like, animated Jean...
Sorry, you did jump ahead slightly because Rogue is like, the last time I went to a dance, that person almost ended up in a coma. Yeah. I don't think that was an almost. I'm pretty sure the dude did end up in a coma.
This is really where the double entendres like keep picking up because they do this whole back and forth about touching, not touching. What's like, it's not fun if you don't get to touch and stuff. And I know what they mean because the dance and everything.
That one I'll give you, but that one I won't fight you on.
But the whole thing sounds like, if you just took a section of this and like played it for somebody else who didn't know the context of the episode, it just wholly could be like a conversation about hooking up, It's like, what's the fun of that if you don't get to? So I get it. But,
I know what our Instagram reel is going to be for this
there
one.
you go.
But she actually is like, well, at least if it's with Scott, Scott knows the rules, and it's, less likely for him to accidentally end up in a coma.
Which, once again, it sounds like something that you'd be told by the chaperones at like your Christian high school dance or something, like if you touch her, God will suck the energy out of your body and you'll go into a coma. Or was it your palms grow hairy?
I went to Catholic school. They never warned us about going into comas, but you went to a very different church scenario than I did, so I can't say that's not what you didn't hear, Rod.
The church I grew up in, I remember the joke was like the reason that premarital sex isn't allowed is because it might lead to dancing. Anyway,
Jean catches up and jumps into the elevator.
Yeah, and I don't know if I think they for this episode they purposely animated her like a little bit more flirty. Her body language and stuff.
I could see that. I definitely can see that.
Because she was like tossing her hair and stuff, and like the Rogue and Kitty were just kind of like eye rolling, like, ugh, like look at her. And Jean hasn't actually done anything wrong. She's just like there's they've already set her and Scott up as kind of like the the quarterback and the head cheerleader kind of vibe. She's giving a lot of that here, and they're all talking about like, why do we even have to be here for this? This is just a test for Nightcrawler. And I think, was it Jean or Rogue? It sounds like something Jean would say, like, well, we all need to know each other's like strengths and weaknesses.
Jean was the one who said that part, because Rogue was kind of like, do we really got to go to this?
Yeah, which I see, for teenagers, it's like, yeah, do we really have to be there? But it's like, someday, like when you're, especially because you're soldiers, you're going to want to know the nuances of what everything they're about to do to him is.
Right, especially when we find out this isn't like a test. Like when they worded it as test, I was like, oh, he's going to do like a danger room obstacle course. Not, oh, this is a scientific experiment kind of test. Like this could go badly.
Yeah, I thought that too. Yeah, I thought it was going to be another danger room thing, but they're like, no, they're experimenting on him. Yeah, you should be there for your friend.
No. And at that point, Kitty asked Jean if she's going to go with Duncan. And I like, she's trying to get the opening for Rogue to ask out Scott. And then Jean like plays a little coy with it of like, nah, I don't know, maybe. So it's like, are they not committed?
Yeah, I don't know, because we do see him later on. He doesn't say anything.
No, he doesn't have any dialogue in the episode.
So, yeah, I guess this is kind of, cementing more that Jean's not really interested in him. She just wants to make Scott jealous or something.
So this moment is actually one of the ones that is referenced in another episode, where the episode is Walk on the Wild Side, which we haven't gotten to because, like I said, they're definitely out of script order at this point. But apparently in that episode, Duncan references that he bought the ticket to the dance already. And then when she says it again, that's a callback to that previous episode.
Gotcha. Well, what? Okay, so he's also double meathead, right? Because if it's the Sadie Hawkins dance and the guy buys the ticket, like that defeats the purpose, right?
So transparency. I went to an all-guys school, so we did not have a Sadie Hawkins dance. So I actually don't know the rules outside of what TV shows have told me.
Well, I guess it's not a rule necessarily. So it's where the girls ask the guys to the dance, but
right.
But presumably, if you're asking, you're also buying.
Bullshit.
Really? Okay.
2000 mentality? No, guys were always buying, even if they were the ones getting asked by somebody.
Interesting. Okay.
In a more modern scenario, I could see it, but like the 90s was still playing off of the 80s, so that was still the dude was buying it at that time.
I honestly can't remember how it was when I was in school, mainly because at the end of the day, it was still our parents forking over, some cash to us either way, so it didn't really like create a memory for me. But
you didn't have to earn the money for the ticket kind of scenario.
Yeah. But I still think it's kind of just bold for like the guy to be like, oh, she's gonna ask me. I mean, I guess if they're a couple, then that makes sense, but like, I don't know, it's kind of funny. But also, I don't know, if she's already kind of checking out and he doesn't notice, this is going too deep. But we catch up with the team. Forge is back. We haven't seen him since
his only episode. Yeah.
And he's like putting a machine on Nightcrawler, and they are dressing so much here. So he says he has 2 miles and he has to see where he's going. Those are rules that you've said before, right? Like it's roughly how far you can teleport, and he needs to see where he's going. I
don't think I've ever put the distance rule in my own speech because I candidly don't know it for him. I think maybe Joe Slepsky did on Nightcrawler Month.
So someone said it, and then Xavier said, we think like you go somewhere very quickly when you teleport.
Because they specifically smell sulfur, which insinuates a different environment.
Yeah, well, after Nightcrawler teleports away, they're like, well, no. Oh, no, yeah, no, you're right. Before he teleports, he says that. And so it's like, okay, so there's a lot of stuff like kind of confirmed right there. And then Forge explains that the machine he's putting on him will slow down the teleportation time that he's in that other whatever dimension and stuff, so they can get a look. And Nightcrawler's like, well, how slowed down will it be? And Forge is like, a few seconds. Straight up lies about that. It's not a few seconds.
Oh, it was less than a minute. I would call that
a minute.
If it's less than a minute, it's still seconds. I give it to Forge on this one.
I guess when I
Forge is also a little bit of a sneaky fuck, so he technically didn't lie, even if he didn't give the full truth.
I guess like when I hear a few seconds, I'm thinking like count to 10 or less or something. You know, like when I tell you, oh, it's going to be a few seconds. I don't. In my head, I'm not thinking like 58 seconds. There's like
I'm saying it's under a minute. Dude didn't lie. He didn't give the whole truth, but he didn't lie.
And so they try it out, and it does what all of us know. And I don't even know that much about the comics, but even I know that he goes through like, well, it's a different. Is it limbo?
Limbo.
You guys call it?
Yep.
Like it.
Not we call it. It's limbo. It's straight up limbo.
Well, when I say you, I mean like everybody else that actually knows the lore. Because there was the one or two comics that I saw that had it in it. They basically explained it that it was called whatever it was called, but it's what like the Christian hell is based on.
Yeah, I remember you had brought that up before because there's like
same thing with Azazel and stuff being like Satan.
Right. But they also have like multiple hells in the Marvel comics because you have Limbo, you have Hell with a single L because of Hela, the hell where Mephisto is king. Like, it's really interesting how they handle all the theologies in Marvel Comics because they all have to be represented in some capacity because they literally have a god who is the one above all. So it's not specific to the Christian God with the capital G, but they have like the representation of an all-powerful. So
yeah, and the MCU is still kind of hashing out what they're doing with it because we've seen multiple afterlives in the MCU, and it's
so fucking confusing. Their hell is the equivalent of like their multiverse rules. I'm still a Marvel fan. I'm still a fan of the movies. But just fucking lock it into one rule.
I think they're slowly getting there, though, because Moon Knight kind of addressed it a little bit, where they were talking about how, like, it all, like you said, kind of multiverse-ish, where it's kind of like, everything kind of, like, molds itself around what your experiences were, or your culture's experiences were.
So, sorry, one quick thing, and I may have been saying this wrong in the past. According to the wikis, they're referring it to as the Brimstone dimension in the comics, not specifically Limbo. I think I might have been flubbing that with Limbo that Magic is stuck in for years.
Oh, gotcha.
So I might have fucked that up. Yeah.
Yeah, I just know it wasn't actual hell because that's what I always like would refer to it as. And yeah, so they go through, and it seems scary but kind of harmless at first. He's just kind of floating through.
The floating was weird. That was the part of it that weirded me out the most, is the floating.
Yeah, because there's like kind of no gravity.
Right. It's just kind of like moving along a pathway. I guess good thing that there wasn't good gravity because he would have just gone into what looked like lava. So,
yeah. But then you see like T-Rex-ish demons.
Yeah. That's what I wrote. Like, it looked like a T-Rex.
Pop their heads out. You know what kind of reminded me of was the American Godzilla. Do you remember that from the end of the 90s? The one that like the actual Godzilla company was like, he's not real.
It's the only one that's not canon.
Yeah, well, isn't he canon? But they killed him in one of the movies, like the Japanese Godzilla company. Like they had like, oh, he's a fake from America, and then they killed him.
I didn't see that, but that's amazing if that's the case.
Shin Godzilla. There was one of the Godzilla. Someone who watched.
It wasn't Shin Godzilla. Okay, I know it wasn't Shin.
Whoever does watch Godzilla movies out there, it's one of the ones, you can name it in the comments. It's one of the ones that happened after the American one because I forget who owns. It's not Toei, is it? Whoever owns Godzilla was so disappointed in America's take on Godzilla that they made a movie after the fact and killed him with the real Godzilla. Toho. There you go. Yep. So
Toei is the animation studio who did. Well, no, they did Pride.
Oh yeah. Okay, that's why I just watched that, so I still have it in my head. But yeah, so he kind of looks like that, like big head, little arms. But Nightcrawler never really sees him, so when he gets out on the other side, he teleports to Forge's lab. Forge's logic is no one should be down there because
it's a safe spot,
which tracks. They don't keep on that logic later in the episode, but so he teleports over and he's like, wow, that was a lot of fun, because he doesn't see anything happening. But then we see one of the dinosaur demon things like kind of peek their head through like a rift that's left a little bit open, and then it just kind of moves on, but with ominous music.
And that was the cold open.
Yeah, that was great.
That was like we talked about, sometimes a cold open is like 15, 20 seconds. This was a substantial part of the episode before the intro song started.
Yeah, like actual story. At school, Kurt is telling Scott and Jean about how this place he goes to is full of fire and brimstone.
He's not a fan of it.
Hell. Yeah, no one brings up hell.
Well, I've been saying it wrong for like a year and a half on this fucking show, and nobody's corrected me. So,
okay, I didn't know.
Like I said, like as soon as we said it, I was like, you know what? Maybe I should just look it up and correct myself. And I was wrong. So
yeah, I can't give any flack to Marvel for the dimensions and stuff because everybody knows I'm a big Mortal Kombat fan. Mortal Kombat's realms are out of control. There's a realm for everything. So it started off with like 2 or 3 in the OG timeline. Now there's like put word/realm. There probably is one.
You're not wrong.
And Jean asked Scott if he can talk at lunch. They're really diving into like this teen drama thing. I like I said, I didn't watch Buffy, but this is giving me that energy of like, can we talk? Is she gonna ask him? Is he gonna ask her? Is the boyfriend? Are they a couple? Are they not? You know. And then as soon as Jean leaves, Kurt starts teasing Scott about asking Jean asking him,
and he's like kind of in denial about it too. Like he doesn't realize that he's actually going to get asked out by her when she's like, "Oh, let's talk later." Like, is he just that fucking oblivious to everything?
He's probably rationalizing like, "Oh, she's going to tell me why she can't." Like, okay, I don't know. I don't know what's going on here. It's been a long time since I was a teenager. And then Scott kind of once again reverses it back to Kurt and is like, what about Amanda? You think she's going to ask you? And it's so funny. I only remember Amanda's name because our interview with Steven, where he was like, oh, this is a joke that didn't age well, but Kurt ends up with this girl, Amanda.
Yeah. But Amanda is also from the comics, too. That is the one who was in the traveling circus with Kurt, who was his love interest as well. So
gotcha.
It wasn't totally the anecdote that Steven said. There was also a historical reason for that character too.
Gotcha.
And I thought they did an interesting job with the character design when we do see her, because she definitely has a little bit of an exotic look. She's a little bit racially ambiguous to an extent, and then like has these like hair jewels. And I know that the proper term is not the G word, which can be seen as offensive, but if she's a Romani or whatever it is, like I think they did a good job of giving you the impression that her family was not originally from the area, but maybe her grandparents or somebody had emigrated over, or some sort of scenario like that.
Yeah, I kind of got the energy she was like mixed.
It seems like they've had very few interactions together. Looking back, it was always amazing where you could like be in class with somebody for weeks at a time and then be like, I wonder if they're going to ask me out. And it's like, aside from their name, have you ever spoken to this fucking person before? Like, that's how weird our teenage relationships were back then. It's like, I have a crush on a girl. I've never said a word to her.
It's funny you say that because I actually kind of felt a little bit for Kurt on this one, because in high school, people have heard me tell the story outside of this podcast, but like, it was my junior year prom, I think. My best friend was like, oh, you should ask, I'm not going to say her name here because I don't want to blast her because it's been years, this girl to prom. And I was like, I don't know, like I'm not really like the most popular person or even in that upper echelon. And she is denied every, star athlete in our class. There's no way. My buddy, like he pulled a dare, and so I had to do it. So it was like the day or two before you had like the last day to buy tickets for the prom. And I went to, I think it was geography class. I like went and asked her. I blacked out, so I don't remember how it actually went. Probably as awkward as all get out. But I do remember her response was like, Rod, I've been waiting for you to ask me for the last 2 weeks. I've been saying no to everybody, hoping that you would ask me. And if you didn't, I was going to ask you tomorrow or something. So lesson learned. I was scared because she had said no to everybody else, but she was saying no to everybody else because she wanted me to ask.
This is why you watch shit like Buffy when you're in high school, Rod, because it teaches you these lessons.
Anyway, then Kitty finds Lance in the hallway and starts talking to him about talking all night.
And
the previous night.
I'm just going to brush past that. But Lance is like acting super aloof. Like he's like almost acting like he doesn't want to be around her. And I'm like, so is he doing the whole like, now I'm too cool for you kind of act thing?
I see. And maybe this is also why I got a little bit of this double entendre energy. I had just watched this Christmas movie called Let It Snow. I think it was based on a book by John Green. There's a character in there played by Anna Akana who has a love interest, and I can't remember the girl's name, but she was in, I want to say Santa Clarita Diet or something. But anyway, they have like...
Naming shit I haven't seen or read, Rod, it's fine.
Well, one of the actresses. Yeah. The other, so these two, they have like some connection. They went on a date or something, but but Anna's character is not out yet. And so she's doing what Lance is doing in this show, where he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, in front of all her friends and stuff. And this other girl doesn't know that she's not. So she's like just talking to her openly about their hookup. And so like, it gave me the same energy as this scene where like Kitty's like, we talked all night long. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I don't.
He's like worried that Blob is gonna like overhear or something. Yeah. She asks him, and he pulls like the fake out of like, I don't know, and then he does the quick turnaround for the yes. I'm like, that dude had 0.5 seconds before that was gonna end badly.
Yeah. And then my note here was, and this is totally separate from what me picking on double entendres. I was like,
this was the one spot where it was the double entendre.
Like, does he kind of mutant version blow his load right there?
Yes.
Okay, because that's because my note was like, he says yes and then kind of blows his load. Like, then there's an earthquake. Of course, no one cares.
This school in New York has had 2 earthquakes in the last 6 months, and nobody gives a fuck. One almost killed the principal.
Yeah, and this one was teenage hormones, arguably more dangerous. And
I mean, both were technically teenage hormones.
I guess, yeah. And she kind of like laughs at him. I think he gives a little embarrassed look because I don't know. It was so funny.
Yeah, I wrote excited quaking, which sounds dirtier, but we've confirmed that it's filthy, so it's fine.
Yeah, if you don't understand what that means, go ask your parents, kids.
If you don't understand what that means and you need to ask your parents, you should not be listening to this fucking show.
Yeah. Or if you're old enough that you should. I think it'd be funny if you ask your parents now.
Dude, I still love, because we see the analytics according to Spotify, and every now and then it's like, oh yeah, there's this 13 to 18-year-old who's watching or who's listening to your shit. And I'm like, how? I literally mark it as explicit.
You never know. I was just watching the Try Guys. Keith Eats Everything at Six Flags, I think. And he comes across a couple fans who are, I don't know, they have to be under 10 years old, like kids.
And he's like, how are you watching my shit?
Right, well, kind of, yeah. So he was like, oh, do you want to be in this video with me? Because it's going so poorly. He's like, we need to make this more interesting. So, like, he buys them food to try with him and stuff. And they eat, and the kids' parents are, like, right off camera. And, like, I forget what, something happened. She was like, don't judge my parenting. And Keith was like, listen, I don't know how these two are watching my show with the things I say on here. So, your parenting was prejudged before we started this segment.
I respect it.
Anyway, then we actually see Amanda. And she awkwardly asks Kurt to the dance.
They have like that great like few second shot going back and forth where they're just like making eyes at each other in class, like doing all like the nonverbal cues of being like shy. And I love that Kurt is still shocked by this. It's like, dude, unless she's creeped out by you staring at her, you're doing okay right now.
Yeah. She's not trying to like block herself with her Trapper Keeper or something.
This was also the era where Trapper Keepers were not cool anymore. Just for we're clear.
Really? Was it?
That was that era. Like when we went into high school and college, Trapper Keepers kind of went to shit. So
I guess it naturally like phased out for me because when I went to college, there was no need for like one big thing, because classes weren't like necessarily in one like long block together and stuff. So
yeah, I mean, I had like binders for stuff, but not like Trapper Keeper.
Yeah. We also like. There was a binder for each class because how much fucking shit you needed for each class.
Because there were always fucking handouts, man.
Yeah.
What happens now? Everybody just gets a fucking like PDF airdrop to them?
I honestly don't know because like
I feel like that would probably be it.
I'm not raising any kids. I guess I could ask my brother about my niece and stuff. I feel like a lot of kids are getting like Chromebooks or maybe iPads. I feel like Chromebooks are more sturdy.
They have better keyboards too.
Yeah, and I was at Adobe Max and found out the big Google announcement was that all the new Google Chromebooks were going to come preloaded with like Adobe Express or something. I was like, that's great for creativity. I feel like no one's going to learn anything now outside of the Adobe suite because if I had Photoshop in front of me during like physics, I would have learned no physics.
Dude, they're going to hit this era where they're going to have to put like teacher controls in students' classrooms. Like if you're in a certain area, you can't go outside of certain programs during like class hours. I don't see how they don't do that because you're literally just giving an excuse to not pay attention at that point. We are not every futuristic society that you see of, oh, people are in class and they're like paying attention. We're closer to Starship Troopers at this point.
I like that. So funny. I do remember Starship Troopers.
The kiss animation that turns into the bubble popping. We're closer to that. Yeah. Let's be real.
I will say though, like that also will have unintended outcomes, but would still kind of probably teach kids stuff because the kids who want to get around it we'll find a really smart way around it. Distractions are always there. I remember having my like TI-86 calculator, and I was programming like video games into it,
Yep. We would play Mario on ours.
Yeah, and so kids are sneaky. That's why I don't have any.
Yeah, that's the reason.
Or any that I know of. At the mansion,
we kind of glossed over. She does go up and ask him. They're both awkward, and then he accepts.
And then back at the mansion, everybody else is. Everybody's back from school. Sorry, and they're watching the footage from Nightcrawler's like little trek. I hadn't thought about this. I guess he did his tests. They did his little experiment in the morning before school, and they probably I don't know if this is the digital era of footage. 2002 was like right on the brink. It could have been tape. It could have been hard drive footage. I remember I had both kind of camcorders available at the time, but either way, the footage wasn't available to them to review until after school.
Well, the kids were also at school. They were probably like, all right, cool. You smell like fucking sulfur. Take a shower, Well,
I guess it just wasn't fast enough that like when he got back, they all just like watched it right then. And
yeah, it was like processing to the point where they're getting home from school, and that's when Wolverine spots the dinosaur in the background.
Yeah, Xavier said like it found organic molecules.
It was Xavier or Forge. I don't remember which one, but somebody.
And then Wolverine was like. He like freeze framed that and he points at the dinosaur. He's like, "Oh, that's an organic molecule."
Which Wolverine, dinosaur is not a molecule.
They say they gotta do some more testing, and Nightcrawler's like, "What? I don't want to go back."
At that point, Wolverine says he's gonna go with them, and then we are back at school, and Kurt is all like freaked out, and he's asking like advice of like what does he wear? Because Wolverine, the kids weren't back at the mansion.
Yeah. I hear Wolverine says he'll go with him the next time, which, I mean, that probably would have been a good idea the first time, but I guess they didn't know that something would be dangerous over there, except for Xavier, who knew that sulfur smell meant probably hostile environment.
To the point where they put him in a protective suit with a breathing apparatus, so yeah.
Which, I just got flashbacks of Victor Timely in the Loki series and stuff in the suit and everything. I was like, how much is that suit going to help? How much do you know about where he's going?
Yeah, like they got lucky where Timely didn't. Yeah.
So then at lunch, they're all talking about Kurt going to the dance with Amanda, and this is more double entendre stuff. So they make a good point that if they're gonna dance, she's gonna feel fur, and then Spike straight up says she's gonna feel 2 furry fingers. I mean, come on, right?
I hate that you're right.
Even if it wasn't intended, that phrase just kind of like. Say what?
So the one thing that stood out to me from this scene, because I'm not as much of a pervert as Rod is they've always been really careful about when you're seeing how Kurt is holding his hands. Like it's usually his pointer finger and his middle finger next to each other and his ring finger and his pinky. But as he like wipes his hand through his hair was actually going in between his ring finger and pinky finger. So it kind of like messed up where the separation of his fingers would be. That's what stood out to me. You and I had different interpretations of the scene.
I also like that. I think that might have been Spike's only line in this episode too.
Probably.
Or one of the few where he's like, she's going to feel those 2 furry fingers. Okay.
That's a hell of a line though.
And imagine getting your acting check for that day for that line. I would frame that. And then Scott says, like, yeah, you just got to come up with an excuse, like wear gloves or something. And Scott's like, I just tell people, when people ask about my shades, once again, 90s shades, I tell them I have an eye condition and they always fall for it. I'm like, we're going to see about that. I don't know, because Scott comes across as someone who isn't very self-aware. So maybe he thinks.
Where they're just like, sure, okay. And then they're making fun of him behind his back.
Yeah. I mean, granted, there was a scene later where some girls said that he was kind of hot and mysterious because of his shades, but I don't know. I'm assuming that there's some people that are like, okay, sure, whatever, kid.
Fair. But at that point, Jean walks up, and then Taryn just jumps in from off camera, is like, let's go to the dance. Like, zero subtlety from Taryn.
My note here is Taryn cockblocks Jean from off screen.
But is it really cock blocking if she's the one who's been seeing him?
Yeah, no, I get it. But obviously this is like the Jim Pam thing, right? Or we're rooting for a different couple that's together. I
don't know. I kind of like Taryn.
No, I do too. It's just funny that she's been mentioned but not appeared at all in this episode yet. And then she appears like the toasty guy in Mortal Kombat.
She wasn't like in one of the like 2 previous episodes and stuff. She's been missing for a few episodes.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of those conflicts that you put in shows like this, and that like. this isn't as bad, but kind of like I was telling you about like Goofy movie and stuff. Like I don't love conflicts like these, like where Goofy notices that Max changed the map. It's like Scott was 5 feet from getting asked by Gene, and then where did Taryn come from?
I don't like this version of Scott and Gene together, though. Like, they're meant to be together because they're Scott and Gene, but I don't actually believe that this Scott and Gene are meant to be together yet. No, I like Scott and Rogue together more in this iteration, honestly.
I get what you mean. And for me, it's mostly just like visuals or aesthetics, because I'm so used to them being attached to the hip. It's kind of like, did you ever have those couples either in high school or college that they were just always together? And
high school, no, because I went to a Jesuit guys only school. So no, not high school. But yes, absolutely in college. They were the ones that like, they started dating the first week of school and the entire year they were together as a couple. Totally.
Yeah. And then they just are together so much that even when things are bad, you're not really questioning it and stuff, And you can't even, I've had friends like that have been like that, dated like years, been married for more years, like together for like a decade, and then they get divorced, and it's like, yeah, that makes sense because you're toxic for each other, but still your head can't let go of the image of them together. Like, I still want you together for my organization part of my brain,
She literally blows up planets as the Phoenix Rod. Right. Toxic.
She's a toxic one.
And he sleeps with her clone and has a kid, and it's a whole fucking thing we'll deal with in 97.
And then this is such a coordinated scene. All that's happening. Then Risty is like in another part of the cafeteria, and she finds Rogue and basically kind of asks Rogue out.
So I especially knowing what we know now on it, where it's like she's stirring the pot. I think she's trying to figure out how to split up the loyalties of the X-Men around each other. But at the same time, taking advantage of the fact that like Rogue is her daughter and she hasn't gotten the chance to spend time with her. So she's like, yeah, let's go meet boys together, which only thing I think becomes a problem is that we know how old Mystique is, which is over 18. But aside from that, which did fly in storylines in 2000, the rest, it was like still a little bit of a villain, but also, it is kind of like she does want to get to know Rogue on a better level and gain some sort of relationship with her. So,
and Risty never actually like makes any advances, I don't think, to any of the boys in the show or anything. It's just something she says.
Correct. I haven't seen anything that has crossed that line, at least, because especially having Risty get spoiled for me early on, I was very like, oh, she's at high school parties, but it's like, okay, she hasn't done anything creepy.
Yeah, besides be around when all this shit's going down. But then Rogue kind of came, at first Rogue was like, I don't know. It's like, you know what? That might be fun. Which sounds like something like I would have done. I almost did once for a school dance where it's like, why don't we just go as friends? Like, why do we have to like, they're what, like 13, 14, 15? Like, why do you need to be coupled off?
Because that's what all the teen movies told us we had to do. We had Can't Hardly Wait. We had American Pie. We had everything from that era that says you need to go with the person you have a crush on and you need to try to get some. That was what teen movies were in that era.
They decide that they're going to go together. And then we see like another teaser cutaway of the rift in Forge's lab opening up a little bit more, the one at the school. And so we're like, I like how they're pacing out, like keeping track of like all these little like breadcrumbs they're leaving throughout the episode. Right, because, where we see the episode going, there's not like, there's a bad, but it's not like a big bad like antagonist. So you got to kind of keep reminding people of like, oh, don't let this be a surprise. This is now a looming threat kind of vibe. Yeah, unlike Taryn, who can just appear whenever she wants to. Speaking of Taryn, Taryn is telling her friends that Scott said yes, and I don't know if Taryn's gradually becoming a Regina George. Like, she's not mean yet, but she's like becoming the popular girl, or showing her as that. And there's that like really quick, awkward moment where like she says hi to Jean and Jean is like giving her the cold shoulder. So it's like, who initiated the two of them like not being as tight together kind of thing? Like, like did Jean get pissy first, or did like Taryn like make a concerted effort to Regina George her, like you're saying? Although, now that you say things are out of order, maybe we'll see that in another episode. That was supposed to be before this one. I mean, the episode is called Walk on the Wild Side, which gives me the impression, like, I don't know, maybe that's the episode that has the craft walk down the hall in it. Oh, okay. Which would make sense. Yeah. And this was the scene that Duncan was in that he didn't speak. And you would have missed it if you blinked. But it's also like,
she's literally getting in a car with the dude who's her supposedly boyfriend. How's she going to be mad at Taryn for asking out the other dude?
I'm glad I'm not in high school anymore.
And then Taryn calls it out. She's like, I don't know why she's pissed. She had her shot and she never took it.
Yeah, she also lives with him.
Yeah, which we know would have happened in Rod's world if he lived there.
I feel like in a human world, if you put a bunch of like very like attractive like young people in a house together where their doors are always open.
They close their doors.
No, but at night, remember you were mentioning like, why was Scott's door open? Like that one.
Well,
you know,
that one, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of them can walk through the walls and the other one can teleport.
Jesus.
So then at the Brotherhood house, all the other, I was going to say guys, but Boom Boom's there too. All of the other Brotherhood people are making fun of Lance, and he's just like kind of sitting in a chair taking it. And then Boom Boom actually teases Blob. He's like, "Oh, you would go if you could."
Well, because Blob is like, "Yeah, you couldn't catch me dead there," and then she's instantly like, "Oh, that's a shame." And he's like,
"Yeah,
oh, did I fuck up?"
But then they all kind of collectively decide to go, which is I got the energy that they were all making fun of him because they wanted to go.
Right.
But once they had they're like, oh, if we all go as a joke, ironically, that'd be hilarious.
Well, because you have Toad, who's super thirsty. Because the second that she's like, "Oh, I would have gone with you, Blob," he's like, "I'll go with you instead." Like the sentence hadn't even finished yet. And then Quicksilver's like, "I would just be fucking bored." He's like, "I could just handle 4 girls at the same time." Which, if you want to go for entendres, Rod, I mean,
that was another one I thought. I was like, okay, sure. And then they do it.
So the other thing from the other episode that carries over, Blob having his head shaved.
Oh, okay. That wasn't the thing I was thinking of.
Well, then I don't know what you were thinking of.
It had to do with Amanda. And we'll get to it. But the head shaved thing, that makes sense because I do remember thinking like, oh, I thought he had a mohawk. I don't know. You never know with these like hair design.
But it was intentional that it was like a few pointed hairs out. Like it wasn't like, oh, he was just bald.
Yeah. Back in the lab, we're reviewing the footage of the teleportation, and the Wolverine decides he's going to go with Nightcrawler, and then they can stay longer. Forge says, somebody asks, like, Nightcrawler, where are you going to go? And before, they were going to go to Forge's lab because no one was going to be there.
Right.
Nightcrawler's like, I'm going to go to the school gym because I'm going to see the decorations. I'm like, the gym that they're probably actively decorating right now?
Yeah, that people are decorating as you speak because it's probably only like 4 p.m. But I also want to point out, he does not want to go back once he realizes that there's something else there. He's like, fuck this. I do not want to do this shit.
And then he gets peer pressured by not only his peers, but also his
teachers,
authority figures to go anyway. They're like, you don't have a choice. We're curious. And so they have this setup where Wolverine and Nightcrawler are like tethered together. It looked like by maybe like a oxygen line or something, but I guess maybe it was just a rope or something.
I think it was just literally like an elastic cord, basically. Like it did not seem secure at all.
Sure, this is hell-proof, right? They poured some holy water on us. And yeah, so they go and they see all the monsters.
Like right at the start. It's not even like, oh, they have to search for it. It's like, oh, nope, they got your scent.
Yeah, and because they were probably like waiting for him to come back because it's happened a couple times now. And I think like they mentioned this a little bit later, but like they probably never noticed him before because it was so fast.
Right. Now that they actually get the chance to see him, it's like, oh, dinner.
Yeah. Now that they had Forge's 59.9 seconds of seeing Nightcrawler there. Then Wolverine starts going to battle mode, starts fighting them. And they have a little bit of tussle, but because they're connected, it's like a little bit of a struggle. And so Wolverine just like cuts the line. Just bold choice.
Because one of them like literally lands in between them and is pulling them down. So Wolverine has to kind of cut the line at that point.
Yeah. Still a bold choice though, because I was thinking, I didn't know how far they were going to take this conflict. Like, is Wolverine going to get stranded
I thought
there?
Kurt was going to teleport back without Logan.
Yeah. Was Wolverine going to get stranded there? Or what's going to happen? Like, how does that work? This whole time they're getting like kind of crowded on and stuff, and they get completely surrounded. And then the teleport ends or continues or whatever, and they teleport just in time. Nightcrawler he's like stripping down. He's like, absolutely not. Never again. Never teleporting normal with the suit. Never again. He's like walking everywhere. And then we see where he was just at the school gym. The rift is opening there as well.
Right. So a few things I want to point out there. If you looked at the character design for the dinosaurs, for lack of a better term, they actually didn't have black lines. Like they were outlined like with a like reddish inverted color, not hard black cartoon effect, essentially. But also, you saw that they got close enough that they actually cut through Wolverine's suit.
Yeah. And if it wasn't a kid's show, that would have been blood.
And if it wasn't Wolverine, it could have been fatal.
Yeah, if it wasn't Wolverine, it'd be intestines.
Yeah, because I would like to think Wolverine probably was inhaling some of that sulfur, and it was just like, oh, at least he could inhale this and not die permanently.
Yeah, think about that.
And then they're like, yep, you guys should go back. And they're like, nope, you have to come pick us up.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because he's like, I'm not going to teleport back. And then Forge is trying to convince them to go back and says he'll make like a better suit this time or something to protect him. And Nightcrawler's like, no, absolutely not. And Xavier actually, for once, is like, you don't have to go back. We prioritize your safety, which I don't think he's ever said in this show.
No, this Xavier does not give a fuck about the kid's safety. But then they're like, what risk is there that, these rifts are not fully closing? And I'm like, wow, you just jinxed yourself. Good job.
Right. Yeah. Forge is like, no, we should be completely fine.
It's a very, very slim risk.
Unless the rifts stay open somehow. Then we fast forward to the dance actually happening, and it's like every other, 90s, 2000s TV show. The kids are dancing. For some reason, there's only one chaperone, which is the principal.
It literally starts on the disco ball.
Oh, yeah. And then the upbeat dancing, the song changes to, and I try to look it up. Once again, we don't know where any of these songs came from. And then it changes to like a slow dance.
Before we get to the slow dance, the dancing did not hit the vibe of the music playing for me.
Oh, yeah. I'm guessing the animators probably didn't have the music or,
Right, but even just like the tone of the music, like how you would dance to that kind of song, they did not have.
Oh, not necessarily X-Men related, but maybe a little glimmer of hope for this show and some of the songs we were trying to find. I don't know if you saw the news. In the show X-Files, also in the 90s, there was a scene where like there was a country song playing in the background in one of these scenes. And it was much like the Dazzler song or any of these songs in Evolution where nobody knew where it came from. This past week, they found the song. They found like the people who were hired to write the song, the studio, whoever, I think it's Fox, produced X-Men, X-Files. They were like, we don't have this saved anywhere or whatever. And because of the internet, and I want to say Twitter, something, one of the original songwriters found the thread, commented on it, hit up the guy he co-wrote it with, and found out that guy still had like a cassette backup.
Yeah.
A CD backup at their place, and they went to pick it up, and I think they might have put it online now. And they revealed that, like, how it went was they produced the episode, realized they needed background music. The producer hit us up and said, like, we need a country song that could be sung to a human or an alien, and we need it 4 hours from now. And that was it. So, I don't know, maybe if anybody wants to keep putting out feelers for all these random songs in Evolution or X-Men 92, maybe there's some demo writer out there that got hired, like, last minute because one of the main music people didn't have the time to throw it in, we don't know.
Right. But then we see Lance and Kitty are there together. Very clearly they're there together. And then Boom Boom walks in with Blob and Toad in like the worst tuxedo I've ever seen.
It's like, I don't know if you had like friends like these or if you were this friend, but like you get all the components for your prom clothes or your tux, but you've never had to put it on yourself properly. So you just kind of guess. That's the look.
I was classy.
Yeah. I where I grew up, like we knew like how to like put this stuff on, but every once in a while, like there was like that kid who was like, "Where does the cummerbund go?" And like,
yeah. And then Boom Boom, like I know the era wasn't right, but I got like Cyndi Lauper vibes off of her.
Same, yeah. The big poofy dress and the hair all over the place.
Yeah. And then Quicksilver proved he was not fucking around. Dude walked into the dance with 4 girls. On the dance that the women were asking you. So that guy has the best game ever that those 4 girls didn't fight each other.
Yeah, I don't know. They don't come back to that. So either that's just a passing joke or a continuation from some other episode that...
Dude, I think Quicksilver just has game. I think he legit just pulled it off.
And I like how his logic is that he's fast, which, once again, not usually a selling point.
His was I could keep 4 of them satisfied at the same time.
Jesus.
So
there you go.
Sorry, occupied at the same time. And that's when it cuts over to the slow dance and we see Kurt, who is apologizing to Amanda for wearing gloves because he got a rash that day.
Yeah, and he's like, do you think I look like a butler or something? And she sees straight through it because she already knows. And he's trying to play it down, and I'm like, well, this is interesting because we've said this before. This world doesn't know about mutants yet. Or They did, and they got their minds wiped. This version doesn't know yet, and she apparently knows and is just not fazed by it.
When we get to that later scene, I have some thoughts.
Yeah.
you see Jean is just annoyed by Duncan because they're like at the dance and he's just like hanging out with his football buddies and she's watching Scott and Taryn. I didn't notice it, but according to the Marvel fandom wiki, there's a girl in the background with green hair, and they were wondering if that is Polaris, who is the half sister of Quicksilver and Wanda. I didn't notice it, but I'll give them credit if they're right. If they're wrong, then we blame them. That's how that works.
Yeah. What a wild Easter egg that would have been, have Polaris in the background.
Or she's coming in a later episode too.
Yeah.
Which we don't know.
My note here was Jean kind of gets like lightly stood up. Duncan's there. He's not there. And then Risty gets rogue and her words are, let's go troll for boys.
Yeah.
Which I know what she means. I don't think I've ever heard that phrase before.
No? I've definitely heard trolling. It wasn't followed by the phrase boys, but I've definitely heard trolling, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think the combination of words, like, I get what you mean. I just think this is the first time I've heard that combination.
I mean, I've heard, like, go trolling for, say, offensive word here, but...
Oh, okay. And so, I forget if they even got started on that or not.
No, they don't. But you just know that they're both there. But she also, like, pokes the bear a little bit because it is within line of sight of Scott and Taryn, so...
Okay. So then we cut away to Forge's lab and the demons start coming through there. You know that that's just a matter of time, if we're doing our timeline right, that the gym is going to open up as well. And then that's where Amanda says that she knows about Kurt. And
yeah, the real Kurt is what she refers to him as.
And he's like, I don't know what you mean. And for a little bit, the way they wrote it, I didn't know if she knew either, or she was talking about something else. Like, I know you're German. I don't know. It could be anything.
Pretty sure he wasn't hiding the German aspect of himself, but yeah, it was like, oh, do you mean like, oh, he's the shy boy and you know that there's a personality behind it? And then she keeps poking and it's like, oh no, she knows.
Yeah, because she grabs his face. He's like, I know. But then she has a really sweet thing. She says like, it's okay, you're not ready. But when you are, you're still okay. Which gives me the same energy as Katie from Shang-Chi, this Awkwafina's character, where, those two have been friends their whole life. He was like, I'm sure you've known something's been up. And she's like, I figure there's something, but I never pried. I'm like, that's a real friend,
Right.
Like, so I appreciated this here with Amanda. She's like, it's okay, when you're ready. Then back at like the control center of the danger room in the mansion, Forge and Logan and Xavier see the portal open up down to the danger room and the demons fly out.
Forge doesn't want to give up, first of all. He's like, oh no, we could fix it. It's, I'm sorry I'm pushing so hard, but he's like, he also doesn't want to give up on this. He knows there's something else going on.
I guess it makes sense too, because this is a kid who's also been stuck in the other dimension for like a couple decades, right?
We determined it was what, like 78 or something like that?
Yeah, so
I think that's 15, what the date was. So he was like 22 years stuck in this shit.
So he's like, I'm not afraid of exploring.
He spent more time in his life stuck in the ghost dimension than he did before he got into the ghost dimension.
Yeah. I'm actually surprised. That would have been funny for him to bring up with Nightcrawler. When Nightcrawler was like, I don't want to go back. He's like, really? Tell me about it.
Yeah, that would really suck to get stuck somewhere, right?
Right. Yes. Have somebody want to blow up the one thing to get me out, right?
But then you see that the rift does start to open up on the floor of the danger room.
And they're like, oh, that's not good. And then back at the school, Blob, Toad, and Boom Boom are in the hallway. I think Blob and Toad are waiting for Boom to get out of the bathroom.
Yep.
And they see the rift in the hallway open. Or no, they did not. They see the demon come through the hallway, not in a rift. That has already escaped. And they're like, that's not good. And they show them starting to fight. And I think I kind of assumed that they just struggled for a bit. We see differently a little bit later.
Right. Because Boom Boom walks out and they're like, they look scared. And she's like, I don't look that bad. And then there's like the jump scare of the dino going at them.
In the gym, that's when the rift opens up there. The demon pops out between Lance and Kitty. Kitty just assumes it's Lance. And I felt like it was a little bit of a callback. Double entendre are not.
Of the excitement of the dance night,
yeah, because it's like, well, there's that room for Jesus that they always told us about in school, and she's like, don't get excited,
and so
he's like, it's not me,
so one of them, because two pop out at that point, one jumps towards Kitty and she lets it phase through, and the other one goes at the principal,
and then Scott blasts that one, right?
Well, Scott saves Taryn with the blast. So it's like point blank. They are using their powers in a public place right now.
Yeah, because then Jean deflects another one. Lance.
Yeah, she uses her telekinetic and just like picks it up and starts like throwing it around.
And then she has like a shield at one point. And then Amanda straight up's like, Kurt, teleport us. He's like, I don't know. She's like, cut the shit. And they teleport. So I was like, okay, they don't address this later. they all just like came out all at once.
So that is what my prediction is. What has to happen in the next episode is it absolutely has to address this, because there's no Xavier mind wipe or any shit like that. It is just straight up. Xavier's not there to try to like undo what he did with like the football game. Like at some point this becomes Buffy, where it's like, oh, we just live in a town that has fucking vampires and we've all had to accept it at this point.
Or the episode that aired out of order addressed it or something, and maybe that's a little bit more why
on the Wild Side episode. Maybe I feel like if they addressed it in the Wild Side episode though, and I'm just going to do devil's advocate here, I feel like the principal would not be cool with them being at the school.
Right, yeah, just like sitting back watching everything. Or maybe someone else came, I don't know, like, because the main thing that's sticking for me is like how calm Amanda is about everything. I know she likes Kurt, but there's like so much happening there with him, because he's one of the more extreme cases.
There's literally dinosaurs jumping at people.
And then Rogue almost starts to fight one of them in the hallway, but then Risty like comes in with the fire extinguisher.
Well, Rogue starts to like come and get me, takes her glove off, and like she's gonna fucking absorb it. And that's where I think the whole maternal relationship came in, because Mystique is like, oh, let's not play this fucking game and see what happens when you absorb a thing that looks like it's from hell.
I also wonder, in the meta context, you wonder if like Steven or anybody who was involved in the writing of this, if they started writing that and they're like, what would happen? And then they go and ask their Marvel resources and they're like, let's put a pin in that.
Yeah.
We don't know. we need to figure that out. So they're like, okay, fire extinguisher. That works. But then Forge shows up, has the same machine from the episode that he was introduced in, or a similar looking one. He specifies later it's not the same one.
It was an improved version of it, yeah.
Yeah, he zaps the demon. We assume it goes back, or Forge explains it goes back to where it came from.
I want to assume he just fucking vaporized this thing and murdered it.
And then is that where they come across Blob and Boom Boom and Toad in the hallway, and they're like already on top of, like, they defeated the demon? And like, Blob is sitting on top of them.
Yes, but right before that, Rogue like tells Risty all about Forge.
Yeah. And
like all the security leaks, like Rogue is responsible for some of them.
Yeah. And also Risty, we know that she's Mystique, but no one in that world knows yet that we know of. And she is kind of like Amanda, is like not as big of a reaction as you would think to everything happening.
The Evolution fandom wiki specifically was like, oh, it looks like Risty has a little bit of a crush on Forge. I'm like, I mean, I guess he's 40, so it's not as creepy, but it's still a very weird thing.
I didn't pick up on that, but that would be an interesting pairing.
Yeah.
Huh, interesting. Okay, yeah, so then they zap the demons underneath Blob back to hell, or vaporize him, we don't know. We're just taking Forge's word for it.
Those two things might be the exact same.
Right. Yeah, he die and go back to hell. Then Amanda and Kurt are where they teleported to, and they're kind of walking, and she goes back to footage from an actual past episode. This is the one I was thinking of.
Yep.
Where Kurt, like, he got sick of everything and he like turned off his hologram thing and then teleported away.
Yep.
She saw that, and
so
she said she already liked him.
So that episode was shadowed past, which I believe was the Forge debut episode.
Okay, that makes sense now. So they kind of, man, now I kind of wonder, was this like part of a storyline or something that they wanted to include, and maybe are parts of the storyline they wanted to include in that other episode, and they just, you know, now have the opportunity to like expand on a little bit or something, or they always just meant to come back to it, or
it could have just been a retcon. It was have multiple connective tissues of like, here's the things that you saw just off camera, you know?
Yeah, but I like that, you know, we mentioned earlier at the beginning of the episode that the girls aren't as aloof as, you know, we would cartoon logic them to be. They're aware that there's like this several love triangles going on. And in this one, like, yes, when Nightcrawler turns back into a blue fuzzball in the middle of a public school hallway and then teleports away, someone saw it.
Yeah. He was in I don't remember if it was actually that episode, but there was, yeah, it was, because that was the one where he was like dancing on the table and Scott pulled his tail down because he was like accidentally revealing shit.
Yeah.
So if that was not intentional at that time and they used it as a retcon, that is a fantastic utilization of a retcon.
And so he kind of concedes and turns off the hologram thing, and she says something really sweet. She's like, blue's her favorite color. I hope that's true. It just wasn't like an romantic line or whatever.
Yeah, either way, it still works.
Yeah. And she's like, let's go for ice cream. I'm buying. And he's like, you're going to regret that.
And then it just ends. And I think to your point, it's like, oh, this has to be addressed. Because now you have a non-mutant girl, like in theory. I literally don't know if she's a mutant in other continuities or anything like that. But you have her now knowing she's like seeing a mutant. You have at least 2 uses of power, if not 3, if you count Lance, in front of other people.
In major ways.
Yeah, like nobody is going to not see an optic blast inside a gym.
Yeah.
Or Jean literally like ragdolling a fucking dinosaur.
They had to have ended it that quickly or have it to be continued because there's too much to wrap up.
There's too much going on there.
But yeah. And now that was it. That's why I had in there. I dug this episode. I don't know what half of it means. They showed us a lot, and now
what parts do you not know what it means?
Well, so like the brimstone dimension or whatever, they haven't named it. They haven't discovered what it is. They don't know what the dinosaurs are. You know, like especially in this world. And I know, like, I don't know anything about the comic book version of that anyway. Yeah. But even if there is a comic version, like what their version of this is, like, is it similar to that pocket dimension thing? Right. That Forge was in? Is this like Azazel, hell thing? I don't know, And also, are the mutants out now? I think that's the biggest piece for me is like it ends on a cliffhanger, which is kind of perfect for how this recording batches for us. It's like, because the next time we're going to record is going to be the last day of December into January of this upcoming year. So this is not just a cliffhanger for the show. It's also a cliffhanger for us because like we've been selling to people, we're watching Evolution for the first time ever. So, and also now, who knows what the fucking order of the episodes are. We may get the flashback episode next, in which I'm all fucked up at that point. Or by the time we come back, X-Men 97 has debuted. And this goes on hiatus for us for 10 weeks. Yeah, so who knows? Yeah. I mean, literally, it was just like those 3 pieces of trivia. The fact that I found out that the Blob haircut was a reference to the other episode. And I was like, oh, the other episode that we have not watched yet. Thank you, Disney. So now that we're watching these in real time, we'll have to try to keep like a light corrected order and see if we can make a dent in correcting this online somewhere. Even if Disney doesn't change it, we can have like a resource of like, this is storyline wise how it would make sense. Yeah, I think it's hard for us to do that because on IMDb they're going to reference Disney, and Disney has like the air-on date that it's matching the IMDb right now. So yeah. Well, I guess I mean like once we're actually all said and done, we finished Evolution, maybe we'll put like a graphic up on Instagram. We're like, this is the order we think it should be based on the story that's happening. All the liars are all fucking liars. Or we just put some like, I don't know. Have you seen what Ryan Reynolds has been posting about the Deadpool movie? Not as much as I should have, I feel like. So a bunch of spoilers got posted. Unfortunately, I saw a lot of them because people with certain characters being shown and such. Yeah. And what happens to them, certain backdrops and things that are I haven't seen backdrop stuff, so that's good for me at least. Yeah, don't look it up. I think I already know the main part of the movie now, like what's happening. But they make out, and that's right. Yeah. If that happens, like I don't know what we have to celebrate somehow. If Wolverine and Sabretooth become a couple in the Deadpool movie, we were right. Especially if they use that Daniel Bedingfield song, even better. She by the way, because Natasha is his sister, right? Yeah. She has not responded to our Instagram yet, Rob. Okay. She has no reason to. So Ryan, he posted first thing he posted was like, basically like, hey, we're trying to do this practically, like effect-wise, so it's not just us on the volume in CG, but because of that, we're outdoors, and people have these like telescopic lenses, and they're spoiling things for everybody, and movies are meant to be enjoyed. And, once again, we know that people are posting these because they're excited. We're excited too, but we want everyone to enjoy this the way that was intended. And then after that, he just started posting a bunch of clearly fake spoilers. Good. To clog up the hashtags. Good. But also they're kind of entertaining. Like I think like Mickey Mouse shows up in one. Actually, wouldn't it be great if Ryan Reynolds spoilers were the real ones, Ryan? And everything else was fake? Yeah, it was like reverse. And I think he kind of implied that he was encouraging everybody else to make like really fake spoilers and then clog up the hashtags too for Deadpool. So Rod, you have a project for winter break. Interesting. Yeah, let's make a bunch of fake spoilers for Deadpool. And the cool thing is Ryan has already set the precedent of them being like terrible Photoshops. So done. I can do that. Can I make them in paint? Because I could do that. Probably. Oh, Predator was in one of them. That was when I was like, I kind of want that now. Here's the only problem.
There literally is a Wolverine versus Predator comic that is coming out in real time as of when we were recording this.
Really? Oh,
yes.
Funny.
There's like a sub-brand within Marvel Comics. It's like 20th century stuff. And there is that comic happening. So,
oh, I don't know if you can see this here.
Rod, you could send that just like to my phone. But yes, no, I saw it.
And then they have like guys holding up cue cards with, as it says, Wally, lower the cue cards. What does this one have? What is that logo in the back?
Send it to me.
So anyway, I thought that was like pretty clever.
Just for clarity for anybody who's still listening at this shit show portion of the night, Rod is holding his phone up to his webcam instead of texting me the image that he's referring to.
One of them is Deadpool and Wolverine standing in front of a crashed Quibi building. I was like, that one could be real.
Too real. Let's be real. Quibi never had a building.
Well, I mean, they put enough money into it. I mean, it did. It just wasn't used very much. Anyway,
Rod, this is the end of 2023, man.
Happy holidays, everybody. Merry Follow-Law. I'm excited about the next episode. Excited about next year because God, unless it's cursed, next year is the year that we said this last December. Next year is the year we see X-Men 97.
Yep.
So
I feel like we're going to have to do a video show for the first episode of 97.
I mean, I'm down. If figure out the logistics and stuff.
It's me hitting screen record.
Right. Oh, okay. We'll still do like this.
Oh, yeah. No, we're still doing this. We're not losing the audio. Most people are watching, like, I think the only video, aside from your shorts, which are fantastic, the only video we've gotten views on is the HeroClix unboxing. So...
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. And then, and then there's a bunch of you opening I try to put out like all the ones of you unboxing the Lego stuff, also in compilations.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how well those are doing. I'm not keeping track of it.
But it wouldn't let you put them as shorts because they're too long. So they're vertical 13 minutes of Lego unboxing.
I'm all about like, let's test with chaos and see what happens.
Welcome to this show.
Yeah. Hope you have a safe and happy holidays. And if you miss us, you can go back and catch up on something. I'm sure there's something you missed, unless you are one of the diehards from the very beginning.
Also, shout out, I forgot his name, so I apologize to him, but one of the people from the other podcast that you were on binged the show and got up to like 4 episodes ago.
Oh, wow.
He commented on our YouTube stuff. So you being on that other podcast, apparently he really likes listening to our voice, and thank God for people like him.
Oh, hey, okay, yeah, we'll look you up and chat you out next time, too.
Also, with Spotify end-of-year wrap-up, I think we had like a half a dozen people that we were their top podcast, which holy fuck is wild.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
thank you for listening. This is wild. This is just our little, like, thing we do.
This is our dumb thing. This is the thing we do because we like it.
And also, if you can't...
sorry. I do have to say one thing I'm very proud of for 2023. We have finally re-qualified for Amazon affiliates.
Hey.
And people did buy stuff on Black Friday. So now I have to go back to all the historicals and add in the appropriate Amazon affiliate links because I was not going to do that if they fucked me over a second time.
Sounds good. So yeah, get some stuff with your gift cards you got. I don't know what to say at this point.
Maybe we just end it and end the year on a low note.
Yeah. Also, I was going to say, I was just a guest on Nathan Kessel and Anna G's podcast. I did shout this podcast out in it. However, his camera died halfway through and we had to reshoot the second half, and then I forgot to shout it out. So if you ended up here, it was by accident, or Nathan's editor was very good and was able to put it back in because we have audio from it. But if you ended up here from that, good job, somebody. Either you for doing your research or one of the editors are putting it back in.
You should have drawn stick figures.
I actually suggested that because they have the angle with those two on it, but the angle with me was missing because the camera shut down. And I was like, just do a Canadian Rod from like South Park, with like the mouth and the head.
Or annoying orange Rod.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, but I think I'm going to be a guest again sometime soon, so we're going to make sure to put that on there. But yeah, if you came from them, welcome. I think Nathan ends up talking about a lot of Pokemon stuff, so you're nerd adjacent, so hopefully you like this too.
Wait, he brings you on a fucking podcast and talks about Pokemon the whole time and not me?
No, it's not the whole time. It's what you imagine a TikToker, in the best way possible, having a podcast would be like. This subject changes so much, but he's very good at keeping things going. So we're talking about one thing, and then we're flipping to the next thing. We didn't really talk about Pokemon, I don't think. He tried to ask me about Matt Rife, and I was like, I don't know anything about that man.
the not funny comedian, yeah.
I was like, other than I didn't find him funny enough to remember before whatever cancellation's happening right now. So, but anyway, welcome from that, and also the other podcasts you saw me on Podcast Horror, so you probably see me or hear me on a bunch of different shows. But thanks for joining us. A reminder that this is our final episode of this year before the holiday break. We'll be returning with a bonus episode on January 8th. If you have any thoughts, make sure to drop them into the comments for either the YouTube upload or official Instagram post about this episode. If you like what you heard, we'd appreciate a rating of the podcast app you're choosing. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and still CastBox.
Yeah, I thought it was dead, but apparently it's like 5% of our audience, so fuck what I know. Happy New Year.